Did you send the push? All right, cool. All right, we're streaming. Hello there, I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson in the TV9 newsroom with this update about the severe weather potential that we see across the state of Iowa here on Tuesday, particularly in eastern Iowa, of course, our area of concern, but we're taking a wide view of the state of Iowa live this morning at 8 o'clock. Storms moving through in a couple of different lines. You see perhaps 1, 2, even 3 if you want to define a couple of lines here. I'll point them out to you. We've got this first line, which did have warnings associated with it earlier, but has since weakened a bit, still providing plenty of heavy downpours, as well as a few areas of embedded frequent lightning. Second line moving into this area right up near Hardin and Franklin counties and tracking east toward Grundy and Butler counties. That could also produce a little bit of gusty wind. It's a very short line segment, but certainly one that we'll be keeping an eye on. It's also falling into an area where we've seen some flash flooding ongoing, and so that will only exacerbate those concerns. Now the third line is way back here in western Iowa. That's where we see a pretty good amount of shower and storm activity present, and that will continue during that time. We are watching this continuing off to the east at about 40 to 50 miles per hour, and that's really going to give us that shot at seeing additional severe thunderstorms. So that's where we stand, at least at the moment, in terms of a live look at pinpoint Doppler radar. Where we stand in terms of our severe weather outlook, well, here's the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. It looks like they did just update this for the morning hours, and it doesn't look like they made any significant changes to it, which was expected. Things are pretty much progressing as we might have expected here in eastern Iowa based on the information we have. The threat for severe weather is still very much with us as we look ahead over the next little while too. Moderate risk for severe weather for the area outlined in red here across, well, all of the TV9 viewing area. This was an expansion from what we saw earlier on Monday night. If you joined meteorologist Joe Winters on air or meteorologist Hannah Messier on line here on our live stream yesterday evening, you probably noticed that it was slightly reduced in terms of its overall spatial extent. It was a little bit farther to the south. At this point, it does encompass a good portion of eastern Iowa, in fact, all of it here in the TV9 viewing area. This is one of those risks that is pretty hard to come by, actually pretty uncommon. So even for a stormy day, this is on the higher end of that potential, and that's why we are giving you this update here this morning. Certainly something to keep an eye on as we go over the next several hours. The risk for high winds and tornadoes are what's driving this moderate risk, that area that we saw in red. Those are both at toward the top end of those categories, certainly a higher end threat there. Wind could be between 60 to 90 miles per hour at times this afternoon, and tornadoes could be strong at times too. Large hail, that area generally a little bit of a higher threat just to our west, although it starts to encroach our western counties over toward Marshall, Franklin, and Hardin counties. But even here in eastern Iowa, with embedded structures within lines of storms, we could see some of those storms produce some large hail, and even some of it could be especially large as we look ahead. So let's take a look at Pinpoint Futurecast, the latest data we have based on storms moving through this morning. That second line of storms will be arriving in eastern Iowa between about 9 o'clock in our western counties to about noon in our eastern counties. It'll be spreading through. It has slowed down a little bit and has shown some signs of weakening north of Interstate 80 as cooler rain-cooled air has led to some of that weakening that we've seen over the past couple of hours. That's good news. If we can get that second line to generally stay out of much of the area, or at least stay weaker across much of the area, that'd be great to see. Now, as we go through the afternoon, we'll likely catch a bit of a break early in the afternoon. That's all it's going to take, along with strong southerly winds, to build up some new instability, and that will allow storms that develop in western Iowa first as individual cells that will produce the risk for tornadoes and large hail and some damaging wind to develop and push into eastern Iowa. So by about 4 or 5 o'clock, and I actually want to go back here and slow things down for you just a bit. 4 or 5 o'clock, they'll be entering our western counties and probably producing severe weather at that point. We'll likely see these moving in a very intense fashion and they will continue to trek to the east and give us that threat for additional severe storms. I notice about 5 o'clock Tama, you've had a pretty rocky morning with storms rolling through. You're going to have more rolling through as we go through the evening hours. And the same story across most of eastern Iowa. As we head towards 6 or 7 o'clock, getting closer to the Interstate 380 corridor, stretching from the Waterloo-Cedar Falls area all the way down to Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. And then to the east from there, more storms passing through the area, and the same storms spreading to the east. Now again, these will either organize into a line that would enhance the damaging wind threat, or if they stay somewhat separate, that could lead to a somewhat higher tornado threat. However, even within lines of storms we've seen so far this morning, little circulations have been able to develop within those lines and produce the risk of a tornado developing too. Not a lot of reports so far in eastern Nebraska and western Iowa of that taking place, but because of the atmosphere that we have in place, that certainly is a possibility. That's why we want you to stay weather aware as you go through the entire day for quick changes too. Got a question on the YouTube chat, which of course you can contribute to the YouTube live stream on the KCRG TV9 YouTube channel. You can ask us questions there directly. A question that, are there any factors that could potentially reduce the severity of today's storms? At this point, the morning activity that we've seen has done a pretty good job at reducing the potential for widespread severe weather, especially north, where that rain has been pretty constant. That's going to limit that looking ahead, which is good to see. That's what we want to see if we possibly can. So that's the good news there. However, with enough of a break behind this activity, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and pull up radar again, and we're actually going to pull up the satellite view to show you what's going on in eastern Nebraska and central Nebraska. This storm system's still pretty far away. I'm going to pull all the way out to the Midwest. I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit again, just kind of give us a good size of what we're facing here. So this cold front with this system is still actually well to our west. And notice in Nebraska, there's some clearing out there. That will be moving into the state of Iowa and provide us with the opportunity to sort of recharge the atmosphere. And that's going to, unfortunately, give us the chance for more storms later today. I think if there was a clear sign that the threat was diminishing, the Storm Prediction Center would have taken action with their last update to their severe weather outlook and reduce that risk, but they didn't, which is sort of confirmation of that too as we're looking ahead. Wish I had better news there. Certainly would rather avoid the severe weather risk across our area, but it's this area where the cold front is sort of passing through. Areas to the east of that is where we're going to see humid conditions develop, and that's going to provide the fuel for those storms as we're looking forward. Right now, like I said, though, nothing out there ahead of that front. It's mostly quiet in central Nebraska and central Kansas, but as that front pushes into the state of Iowa, we're going to see that activity again pick up here in eastern Iowa. All those ingredients are in place here in eastern Iowa. We have got the 4 factors on our severe weather checklist. Wind shear, change of wind direction and speed with height. Plenty of it as we go through the afternoon especially. Winds will actually increase at the upper levels, increasing that shear across the atmosphere. Source of lift, which would be that cold front and the low pressure it's attached to, both of those have easily caused air to move upward over the last little while, and that has caused those areas of storms to develop. Instability, which we have had overnight, but it has been at least somewhat tempered so far this morning thanks to the extent of the thunderstorms that we had overnight, but it will rebuild. And then moisture, yeah, there's plenty of that too. If you step outside, you'll feel the humidity this morning, and there will be more where that came from as we head through the afternoon too. So even though these storms continue, we will see additional areas of instability build up. And that's the bad news there. Again, wish I had better news in general. Precipitation over the last 24 hours, well, it's been heavy in parts of Tama, Marshall, and Poweshiek counties, as well as up toward Butler County in particular. In fact, I'm going to switch our view here once again. Bear with me as we sort of take a look at all the information that we have here coming into the weather lab. Going to take a look at the rainfall over the last 6 hours. You can see right along Highway 30 in particular and that sort of corridor, and then again up north of Highway 20 is where some of the heaviest rainfall totals have been seen over the last 6 hours. In fact, 6 inches possible based on radar estimates in southern Marshall County, northern Jasper County, which is just outside the TV9 viewing area. Even portions of southwestern Tama County perhaps saw substantial rainfall between 4 to 6 inches there too. That's why flash flood warnings are in effect for this area. Go ahead and pop that on. See those blue boxes surrounding those heaviest rain areas? National Weather Service has had some reports of water over roadways. Iowa DOT has had to close a couple of roads in this area. If you see water over roadways, make sure to turn around. It's not worth the effort or the risk to your vehicle, to yourself, to drive in those flooded areas as we go through the next 12 to 18 hours as these showers and storms move through. Unfortunately, like I said, we do have areas of rain moving into these areas that already saw some of this activity. You can see moving in from the west, we've got that rain just outside of that flash flood warning in the Marshall County area, but Iowa Falls seeing a pretty decent line of storms moving through. Up toward the Parkersburg area, we're going to see that move through again and provide that heavier rainfall. So that is what we're facing, at least in the very, very near future. Stronger storm off toward central Iowa. We'll pan down this way and show you the activity as it spreads in from that way. Still warned for 70-mile-per-hour winds and half-dollar sized hail. And that's why we actually have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for a good portion of the area. Put that on here to show you where that's in effect right now across the state. It goes until 1 o'clock this afternoon. Does include areas like Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Washington, Waterloo included. Dubuque technically not included at this point, but this may change. If you're watching this on delay, then this may have changed. Make sure to check on the latest on the KCRG TV9 First Alert Weather app too, in order to keep things straight as we look ahead. We'll recap the severe weather outlook one more time here this morning with the moderate risk for severe weather continuing across the TV9 viewing area. Primary threats, damaging wind, tornadoes, and large hail in that order in terms of what faces the greatest threat here in eastern Iowa. We'll look at the latest information from Pinpoint Futurecast. I'm actually going to pull up a slightly different view of it to look at some of the latest data that we have based on information that's coming into the Weather Lab. Okay, this is the rapid update version of Pinpoint Futurecast, and we'll see what it does over the next few hours here. It takes those storms out of central Iowa. It shows a weakening trend, but I think it's probably overdoing that based on what we've seen so far. It does carry on that same idea of a new round of storms by 4 or 5 o'clock, and then expanding across eastern Iowa by 6 or 7. That's when that damaging wind threat really could increase across the area. So certainly something to keep an eye on during that time frame. Again, damaging winds, tornadoes, the top threats today. Flash flooding also a significant threat. A flood watch in effect for a good portion of the area today. And if you have a flash flood warning issued for your area and you're in a flood-prone area, a low-lying area, or an area near a stream or river, be ready to take action in case you do need to move to higher ground, as those things can change very, very quickly. You saw that look of Pinpoint Futurecast. We'll give you a reminder of the safety tips as storms move in. Please, if you find yourself in a warning, take shelter. Stay inside until the storm passes. Stay away from windows. We can see effects from damaging winds, even with windows. Those winds can be strong enough to blow those windows out. Sometimes can drive hail into those windows and shatter them. So please be very careful with that. If a tornado warning is issued for your area, make sure to get to the lowest level into your room that you can. Cover your head and neck with blankets and pillows. Bike helmet's not the worst idea in the case of a tornado. And stay there until the threat is passed, until it really has, until that warning expires, or until we see any sort of cancellation of that warning too. If you're out and about, get inside. That's the best bet. If you possibly can, that's your best plan. Substantial structure. Don't think about like large department stores, large big box stores that have big flat roofs. Those aren't necessarily the safest spot, and so we want you to stay safe. Get inside a more substantial, smaller structure if you can. Certainly underground would be the best too, and if you can't, do not try to seek shelter under an overpass. That's actually not safe for anybody, as it can cause traffic jams, and it also puts you in a spot where the winds may actually be a little bit locally stronger as they flow underneath that overpass. Watch out for flying debris too. Protect your head and neck if you have to seek shelter outdoors in a low-lying area within those storms. That's, of course, your last resort if that's what you're running into. Otherwise, a good way to stay in touch with us. Keep the KCRG TV9 First Alert Weather app in your pocket. Keep those notifications on too. That will give you an extra heads up. It's just one of the tools in the toolbox to keep you safe as a warning is issued for your area. We'll have updates to the overall broad picture on kcrg.com. You can also find our live stream on there too. Otherwise, Fire TV, Apple TV, Roku, all the options that where we have a streaming app, and you can find our live stream on there too. YouTube will be streaming our severe weather coverage if it becomes necessary later today as well. And then grab the weather radio. Don't forget to have that plugged in, turned on. Make sure that it's set right and have it ready to go as we go through the day today. So that's where we stand. One broad view again of the radar here across the state of Iowa, looking at that potential for showers and storms to be moving through, the strongest of which is just southwest of Des Moines. The only severe thunderstorm warning we have in place now. Those storms moving to the east at about 40 to 50 miles per hour last check. So 40 miles per hour. We'll actually put a quick storm track on that too, just so you know what we're facing in the next few hours if you're watching live with us here. As these continue to track to the east. So that gets it to the Marshalltown area by about 9:30, Tama by about 10, Cedar Rapids 11:21, Iowa City closer to 11:39, and Muscatine just after noon at 12:20. Gives some wiggle room in case these start to speed up a little bit, which they can in some cases. And this is a line of storms that could contain severe weather as they pass through. I'm going to go ahead and let you go for the morning. Please, again, stay weather aware throughout the rest of the day. Thanks for joining us on this stream this morning, and we will be, of course, with you as we go through the rest of the day.